Alright, a single player video game is a video game where input from only one player is expected throughout the course of the gaming session. Single player game usually applies a game that can only be played by one person, while single player mode usually refers to a game mode for a single player, whereas several players may play in a different mode. Earliest video games such as Tennis for Two, Space War, and Pong were two-player with a single-player games, gaining popularity soon after with titles such as Speed Racer and Space Invaders. I love single-player games. I can't tell you how much I love them. Do I love them too much? Yeah, but that's how I roll. That's how I feel. I grew up playing single-player games. Shoot, I remember I played Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I can't remember exact title, but I played those games. I played Afterburner, Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 2, Super Mario Brothers 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade games, 1989, Turtles 2, Final Fight, Double Dragon, Shinobi, all other classic games. I mean, single player mode, oh my god, they were great. They're still great. I mean, all you have to do is find them. I mean, look at Darksiders, Bayonetta, Fallout series, Skyrim, even though it's buggy, glitchiest game in the history of video games, winning a lot of awards, but it's still great to play. What's happened to single player driven games, they're being pushed to the side with tacked on multiplayer modes. Now, I don't mind multiplayer games, let alone multiplayer, online multiplayer, and so on. I don't hate them. I just hate the idea of single player driven games getting less attention and give more to tacked on multiplayer component. Now, the only games that actually worked are Uncharted 2, Gears of War 3. That's the way I see it, because there are plenty of variety, like co-op versus mode, which is online multiplayer mode, and single player. So that's where people just don't like about where the direction is going. I understand the gaming companies looking at the dollar signs, and other gamers are saying you gotta look at the replay value standpoint and everything. Why would anyone go out and buy a single player game for $60 plus tax? That's silly. That's crazy. But last time I checked, in a Sega Genesis and a Super Nintendo era, gamers bought single player games for what, $70 plus tax? Donkey Kong Country series? Anybody? Battletoads? I'm just saying. And oh yeah, for anyone who wants to sit around and say that single player games are nothing or they're not as interesting, they're wrong. The major selling points of a larger single player games are interesting storylines, impressive graphics, and realistic non-player characters and opponents. Notable examples include action-adventure games such as Legend of Zelda, platform games such as Mario and Sonic, stealth games such as Metal Gear, survival horror such as Resident Evil and Silent Hill, first-person shooters such as Doom and Half-Life, etc. Selling points of the smaller games are low learning curve and availability. Many are free to play on various sites. I could bring up Bioshock, Freedom Fighters, what else? I did say Darksiders, Bayonetta, Dead Space, Borderlands. Their games out there are great from the beginning. Then all of a sudden, once it got popular, then all of a sudden the gaming companies feel the need they need to have a tacked on multiplayer. They think it's going to sell when people are not going to play it. And guess what? Look what happened with Bioshock 2. People didn't. They only played the multiplayer for what? For a short period of time, and they just left it alone. And now you look at Max Payne 3 multiplayer for the first time. Look at Ninja Gaiden series. It went from all about single player, then they add co-op, which they had 4-player co-op, and now they brought in the online multiplayer component with Ninja Gaiden 3. and people panned the online multiplayer side of it. That just goes to show you that players, well, gamers don't need single player driven games to have a tacked on multiplayer. They just don't. For me, I don't mind, but I wish the gaming companies focus more on single player games instead of having tacked on multiplayer. That's all I'm saying. And Mass Effect 3 is definitely another example. With that, throwing the peace sign, I'm out. Thanks for listening. Check y'all later.